3 tips to get better at whetstone sharpening. First, we're just gonna dive into the first tip. That's picking out your whetstone that you're gonna be using. Now, typically that's gonna vary dependent on what is the quality of your knife. Is it in a horrible condition? Did you dull the dog out of it? Or you just need a quick little touch up because your bad boy's not cutting the paper hair, thin hair off your arm. If you got an incredibly dull knife, I'd say starting with anywhere between 400 and 800. If your knife is just dull from just average day use, I'd start anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000, which I have right here. And then if it's not dull at all, but you just want to make the bad boy look shiny and beautiful, I have a 5,000 and 10,000 grit. That's just the basis of how I start things. Sorry. But it's completely up to you. You can go anywhere from 200 to 1,000 to 3,000. I would at least get 3 stones that you can work with between dull, medium dull, and beautifully good. Whether it be 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 800, 2,000, 4,000. The first tip is always having a Sharpie. Now, it doesn't have to be anything special, just any Sharpie will do. Typically keep around a little bit of fingernail polish remover on hand too, just because you can easily remove any Sharpie lines. Now, what you're gonna do with the Sharpie is just follow down that whole edge and completely black out the whole thing. So that way you'll be able to see what you're actually doing when you're sharpening. Easy, simple first step. Just Sharpie the whole thing. Let's go to step 2. Now, there's no right or wrong way to hold a knife. Just kind of do whatever's comfortable. And as long as it's getting sharp, it's working. So for me, I'm just going to hold it just like this, put decent pressure, and just pull back one time. Take a look at it. Now, as you can see, hopefully from the camera, I got more of the Sharpie mark off the whole actual edge. Now we got to actually tilt it a tad bit more so that way we can move this whole Sharpie mark, because that's the whole goal. Now let's do a little bit more. Switch our grip just a tad bit. I'm going to do 2 passes. Okay, so that came out better. We're getting more on the actual edge. Back here, we need to tweak it a tad bit more. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now we're just going to sharpen it a little bit more to see if we can actually remove that whole Sharpie mark. Look at that. Okay, so we got that perfectly removed, and this is where I said if you have some fingernail polish remover, you'll be able to remove that little bit right here. So now that I got my angle correct, I know where I'm going to be holding it at. We're going to set that on there. Now we're going to actually fine tune it a bit more how I typically like to do that, which is a few passes back and forth while slowly rotating the whole knife. Okay, so now we keep going back and forth. You can do however you'd like. I know some people just straight up go back and forth just like this motion. That's fine too. This is just the method I'm using, but here's a tip with my method. So when you're going back and forth, a lot of people ask, how are you not digging the knife edge into this stone? How are you putting pressure on? Do you put pressure on both ways? Things like that. What I'm doing here is I'm pulling back with some pressure with these 3 fingers. Okay, I'm also adding pressure down here on the back too with this finger, but I'm putting pressure down and then I let up of everything to slide back with as little pressure as possible. But in this motion, it helps me be able to keep a consistent angle on the whole knife the whole time of sharpening. You just keep going back and forth until you get your nice burr all the way down. After you're done sharpening one side, constantly be checking, rubbing your finger over this. I'm sure you've heard it, but you'll feel a burr. It's going to be a slight little tugging motion. You can run it across the opposite side and not feel anything really grabbing at your finger, but when you come back, you'll feel like a slight little lump grippy on your fingertips. That means it's ready to flip. Now, when you flip your knife, you're going to do the same motion as what you started out with, except for I'm going to do the tip of the knife first and just start pushing up. Check it, which that actually did pretty good first try. Nice. But we're going to do a few more just to make sure that we remove this properly in that same position. And that's actually doing pretty good. I'm not working this backside enough. As you can see, there's still Sharpie back there. So that just means I need to start working this back a little bit more. So let's do that. Hold it in our same, we'll get started. Hold it in our same position. And we'll go back and forth just a few times to make sure this is the correct position. Flip it and perfect. Or let's just say that's pretty good. Now we know our position. We're going to do the same thing, but we're gonna put pressure pushing away from us this time, okay? And same thing, no pressure when you're pulling the knife edge towards you because you don't want to dull it. And we got a nice burr all the way down. Now what we're gonna do is just do a few passes each side just to help remove that burr before we go to the next grit. Now we're gonna switch to 3000. The tip 2 section, do we talk more and give more tips? Yes. Are we gonna count any of those? No, because that was only 2 tips so far. Let's get into tip 3. Tip 3 is pressure. So whenever you're first using your first stone, use a decent amount of pressure to start setting that angle to how you're holding the knife. But as you're moving up grits, the amount of pressure isn't as important. Just keeping that consistency is more important. So start focusing more on holding it exactly how you had it at the beginning. And you still will develop a burr when using higher grits. It'll just be finer and finer as you go. Using a finer stone, it's gonna do 2 things. 1, get your knife sharper, and 2, make your knife even more shiny. This is the 1000 grit side, this is the 3000 grit side. It does have, they're both pretty shiny, yeah. But as you start to go up, you'll start to notice a lot more of a polish on your knife edge. You know, let's throw in a tip number 4. It doesn't matter how many times you use the Sharpie. You can use it as many times as you want, because every time you go up a grit on stones, you could slightly forget your hand positioning, which isn't a problem. You're learning. I'm still learning. I still go back and re-Sharpie every time, except for on this video, because I'm trying to look cool for you guys. Now, as you're going up on grits, if you look at the edge of your knife, getting into the finer and finer grits, it will start to put more of a mirror polish, which that is similar to the Sharpie trick, because as you look at your edge, if there's a spot that's not as polished or looks a little bit off, it could be an indicator that either your knife is a little dirty and wipe it off, or you weren't actually hitting that spot enough to be able to polish up like the rest of it. So it's always nice to take your knife, look at it in the light, and see what's kind of going on with the reflection. Have we done more than 3 tips? I believe so. Are we upset? No. So let's keep going and finish this knife out, and hopefully it's enough for you to say, let me subscribe to this guy. So now we're up to a 5000 grit stone. Can't wait to see this nice, beautiful, reflective-y edge. And no cheating and skipping to the end. We're a team here now. Let's move to 10,000 grit, this bad boy right here. Now, once you're at a grit this high, it's gonna actually feel like you're not removing any metal. But you are, very slight bit. It's gonna be super fine, and it's gonna feel like you're rubbing it against glass. But it's very, very, very finely removing those particles of metal. So as we take a look, the reflection looks pretty good, looks nice. So is this considered cheating? No, of course not. Just simplifying things. So here's that nice, beautiful looking edge. Got a good polish on it. A little bit of nail polish remover right across the edge. Removed all that little bit of Sharpie. But hopefully this is coming out nice and clear and in focus. So let's test it, see how sharp it is. 65. Y'all saw the numbers going up, and yes, does it shave hair? This is for educational purposes only. But I don't know if you can see all those particles. Oops. I don't know if you can see all those particles of hair, but yes, it does shave off hair. Thanks for watching, and once we hit 10,000 subscribers, we're gonna be doing a giveaway. Let's say it's a decently pricey product, maybe the thing I use to buff and hone this beautiful edge on. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. It's a little close-up. Look at that. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, ah.